Let's start coding our abstract awesome block. Hello everyone, this is Ali Reza. Welcome to the Mentor Code Lab. In previous videos, we finished working on our properties for blocks and block entities, and now it's time to do something almost identical and similar to what Turtiworti had done on his block. However, there will be a huge difference. You see that he has to keep block facing opposite, block entity type supplier, or should tick, or stuff like this. When he is actually creating the properties, although he can keep the property itself, he's dropping the property and he's reading the values of the properties and assign them to fields that he defined on top. Again, I don't understand why. If you have to do this, why do you bother? Just keep the properties itself and drop most of these, because all of these are either fields that are assigned in the property or at some point some property states. So let's change it a little bit. Now I will sit down and write my class instead of just copy pasting, because I'm not sure how much of the code is copy pastable. We are changing things around. So we have gblock, that is our abstract class. And this will extend block from NetMinecraft block, of course, and then implements a block entity provider. Now, here's the thing. You may sit back and think not all of my blocks should return block entity provider, but that's only an interface. Don't worry. If you add block entity provider, all it's doing is that it says create the constructor. Let's remove this abstract first. And you see that it forces you to implement this method. Now, this method can return null. As much as we care, it can return null. So it won't bother anyone to have an interface on a block class that will be extended in future, and you may not want a block entity. Although, here's the thing. If you don't want to have a block entity and all you care is a block model, a complex block model, I don't know, maybe you have something like that, but the use cases are really small and limited. So the first one thing that I want, instead of having many different variables, is just a block properties, and we call it properties, and this should be private final. So we are tracking our own properties. And here, when we are constructing things, of course we want settings, but after that we want the block properties, we call it properties, and after the super, we say this dot properties equals to properties. Now this should eventually give us everything we need. Let me see. I'm reading his code and pausing, but I will remove those pauses between the episodes. So the state properties, because we have the properties, we should have access to state properties at any time, so we don't need to cache it. Caching it can be a little bit optimized for speed, because each time you are reading properties dot state properties, you are calling a method. However, if you cache this into a local variable on the block, this can be a little bit speed optimized. However, those should be nanoseconds, I don't think it would have any huge impact on a block. Anyway, let's see what's going on. The place face opposite has comparator output, render type, shape factory, can exit, and cache directory. All of them are being kept in the properties. And then we have properties, block entry properties. Then we have something like this. It says state manager from NetMinecraft state manager dot builder of type block, comma, block state builder equals to new state manager builder for this block. Then we have append properties for the builder. Now you notice that normally we just override append properties and we get the builder from calling the super, but here we are just creating our own builder and sending it to append properties, dissecting ourselves from using the block super whatsoever. Now after that, we say this dot state manager, this belongs to the block itself, equals to builder dot build. Now we want the block and the default state and block state new. Basically here we are saying, hey, we want a new block state with the default state of this block, and this will say that cannot assign a value to final variable state manager. Can I use access widener because this is final? I will take a look at that. But then we have set default state, this dot state manager dot get default state. After this block state, we call it state equals to this dot state manager dot get default state and say state equals to properties dot state properties dot apply default state. Then we say set default state with the state that we have. Okay, this will cause some additions of any default state that we had added to the properties at any time before this line to be registered, and then we set them as a default states for the block. Now this dot state manager is final. We can use access wideners. Now let's see if I can find a copy special for access widener entry invalid element. Nope, it's not working. Okay, copied accessible field. We need to add the access widener to our Jiralib. Do we have it or don't? Oh, we have it. Okay. Now it says accessible field. Okay, it's accessible, but instead of being accessible, I want it to be mutable. This means that it will remove the final, and this is net Minecraft block state manager lnet Minecraft state manager. So making it mutable means that it's not final anymore. And because I did add an entry inside my access widener, now I need to reload my Gradle project, and I will come back when it's finished. And as you see, now you don't have any errors about this being final. After the constructor, we have the append properties to handle. So append properties. Normally, as I said, we would cache the builder and add builder to this and that, but we say if this dot properties dot state properties does not equal to null, then we want to say this dot properties dot state properties dot add to builder. And this is why we don't append things manually. We use this so that we can go down and add everything in one go without checking anything. So all we are checking if the state properties is not null. Now by default it shouldn't be null. If it is null at some point, means that we messed up something because we are inline initializing it. Okay, so it shouldn't have any problems there. Now that we have the append properties, we want to make sure that we are handling the facing and get placement. Normally I start with get placement. Here at the very end, if we handled everything, we return something called state. Now state is a block state equals to the super dot get placement from context, and we say if state equals to null for whatever reason, then okay, just return null. We don't care. After that, we say if this dot properties dot state properties dot contains property. Now the property we want is properties, not from Java util, but net Minecraft state properties dot horizontal facing. If we have horizontal facing, we want to do stuff. Otherwise, remember, we did actually add facing by default. I think I added it to the whole thing. Let me check. Has access, has facing, add facing. Yes, I think I added it. So we say else if this dot properties dot state properties dot contains property for properties dot facing. We want to do things. And after this, we might have an access. So we say if this dot properties dot state properties dot contains properties dot access, we want to do things, and then we will return the state. Now if you have the facing for horizontal facing, you will say direction from net Minecraft util math, we call it facing, equals to context get horizontal player facing if this dot properties dot. Now how did I add the facing here on the block properties? Facing. So we are asking for getter facing opposite. Okay, so if properties that facing opposite means that we are looking to the other way, we are saying facing equals to facing dot get opposite. Okay, and finally here we say state equals to state with the horizontal facing for the facing. Now if we are using facing, we say direction facing equals to context dot get player look direction, I think. Then again we want to make sure that we are putting the facing on the opposite side if we need to, and that would be it. I didn't do any sanity check here, and honestly I think I should do a sanity check on the setting, because right now my code will let you have horizontal facing and facing at the same time. So I should say if the state properties dot has that contains properties for the horizontal facing, we need to throw new illegal argument exception, and here we say cannot add properties when horizontal facing is already present. That's a good one. I will take this and add it here, and instead of horizontal, I will check if I have facing and horizontal facing property when facing property is already present. Okay, these two should be sufficient to make sure that we have either one of them. Either we have facing or we have the horizontal facing. Okay, now that we fixed this part, we go forward and add state equals to state dot with properties for the access with context.getSite.get access. And finally, we return the state. So that's the get placement state now. Basically, this single method is eliminating these two. So bye-bye to that. Abstract facing block, abstract horizontal facing block, bye-bye to that. Now activatable block, because I'm appending all the properties saying that, hey, for example, this dot properties dot add, I don't know, a powered or something like that, dot or has powered property, means that I'm already turning on the powered property and adding it to the states, so it will append the properties, as you see. Okay, it will immediately do it by default, so I don't need to worry about appending that. Now that I have the placement state, I can go down and write the rotate and mirror. So we say rotate before calling the super. We say if this dot properties dot state properties dot contains property for the properties dot horizontal facing. So if we have the horizontal facing, we want to return state dot with properties dot horizontal facing, comma, rotation rotate state get the horizontal facing. Honestly, I'm not sure if it will work with the facing for the same thing. Let me check. It says return state with properties facing and rotation rotate state get properties come on facing. Now it says if we have the access, but for the access I don't think we need to handle anything. So that's it. I'm not sure this will work or not, but I think it will. Okay, then we have the mirror. So mirror, and here before calling the super, we say if this dot properties dot state property dot contains properties for horizontal facing. Let's see if the code was correct. Return state with horizontal facing, mirror dot apply state dot get horizontal facing, and then it's just changing it to facing. Hopefully this will work. I'm not sure. Then we have the create block entity. Create block entity. All we are doing is returning this dot properties dot block entity supplier. Now, how did I get that? Wait a minute. He is defining it as the supplier of block entity type. So it's the type of the block entity. Here's the thing. Block entity properties dot. Why don't I have the supplier here? I think I forgot something. So we have this and we don't have a get for that. Do I? Should tick block entity factory. These are the set methods. Yes, unfortunately, all of these are set methods. So we have a public that returns a supplier. Can you be smart enough of block type, block entity type of T and block entity type supplier, or I should say type supplier. I don't know. Get type supplier. Please be smart enough. Okay, I will add that one. Then we have the should tick. Public boolean is tickable. Return this that should tick. You're not smart enough anymore. That's this guy. So get block and factory. Yep, finally he became a little bit smarter. And then the ticker factory. Then we have right click and drop content. So right click opens GUI. Public boolean has GUI. This dot right click opens GUI. And then finally, what is the last one? Drop content on break. So public boolean should drop content on break. Return this dot should drop content on break. Drop content on break, for God's sake. Okay, I never had this much problem writing my own code because I'm waiting for the Copilot stupid thing. Okay, this one is the thing that I need right now. Boom, thankfully. So if this does not equal to null, then we want to say this dot properties dot the block entity properties dot get factory and create for the post values or state. Otherwise, we return null. As I said, you can return null if you don't have a block entity. So what did we do? We check if we have a supplier, if we did provide a supplier for block entity properties. Now, keep in mind, block entity properties by default can be null itself. Okay, so I need to keep that in mind because these are not constructors. Okay, so here's the thing. This can become null and this can cause a null pointer exception. So I need to have to check if this guy is not null and this guy is not null. So if both of them are okay, means that I provided a block entity properties for the block, and I did even provided the supplier. The supplier here is the type. As you see, it's a type of a block entity. So if I provided the type, means that now I can instantiate that type for the block entity. If I didn't provide any block entity properties for the block, or I didn't provide the supplier, means that this block has no block entity, so return null. We can do that easily. Okay. Now the next one is get ticker. For get ticker, things are a little bit more interesting because we should check if this dot properties dot get properties is not null. Okay, that's not the only thing that we want, and this dot properties dot block entity properties dot is tickable. So if it's tickable, then we have to make sure that we have something else to do. We were making sure that we are I-tick, but here we are not making sure if we are I-tick. Now we need to make sure that if, actually another condition, if I-tick dot is the instance of, or I'm not sure, I need to make sure that the block entity is instance of the interface. If this dot block entity type dot instance of I-tick, and we call it tickable EE. If this is the case, we want to do this, but like so. Oh wait, don't I have create? No, this is not what I want. God. Where was it? That's not it. This is not it. ITPE factory, I think. So if it is an instance of this guy, and it says it's row now, yep, then I want that to be created. And again, it says unchecked call to create as a member of a row type. T extends block entity. So any will work? No. Block entity. This shouldn't work. It's still row usage. I will fix that one because I want to make sure that I'm doing things properly right now. This is where we are making ourselves confused. So instead of that, I will go with this approach. If this is the case, that ternary is making me confused. Otherwise, return null. Okay, that's this section. Then instead of here, we say if this is the case, please do this. Else, we want to handle vanilla way. Okay, and I will fix that in a few minutes to do handle vanilla way. Okay, so we have some problems here, but I will come back to that. And at the end, as I said, we'll return null. So this is the get ticker so far. Then we have the has comparator output, and we simply return this dot properties dot has comparator output. The get comparator output, we return this dot properties dot comparator output. And why are you yelling at me? Oh, we want to make sure if we have the comparator output, then we go for the comparator output dot apply the state word and pause. Otherwise, no, we are not calling the super. Let me do it this way. We are not returning 0. We call the super dot get comparator output with the state with the word and pause. Okay, get render type. We return this dot properties dot render type, I think, yes. Then the outline shape, get outline shape. This dot properties dot shape factory dot create for the state, word, position, and context on a state replaced. Now here is something that he is doing. I will copy it because we need to comment some parts. This dot multi-block, well, before that we have the properties, and he is handling if it's multi-block or not. Okay, we don't have multi-block state whatsoever right now. This is something that is not related to this library. It's for inventories and drop content. Okay, I will comment it because I have to write it back inside my inventory library. So right now we are just calling the super. Don't really need any of that. It's just a super call and nothing to handle. Okay, now unuse. Here we say, again, I will copy it because these are big, but parts of them are related to multi-blocks. So we don't have multi-blocks. Let's comment that section. Okay, if this dot properties dot has GUI or whatever it was, block entity properties dot has GUI. So if it has the GUI, then we check if the word is not a client. These happen all the time. So we get the block entity, and then we check if the player instance of server player, we call it SP block entity instance of no. I don't want this to happen. Place with component access maybe. That's his comment, not me. But this one, I have IBE screen. I'm not sure if that would work. And again, this is raw. I don't like to use raw. Any will work. So that will open the block entity GUI stuff and then return. Otherwise, just call a super. Now, I wonder, will this work? Yes. Okay. Basically, this means any, unknown or any. Okay. Unplaced. Now, this is all about multi-block system. I will copy it and then I will comment the whole thing because that's not going to work and that's not going to happen at least for time being until I figure things out for a multi-block library, and the multi-block library should happen before the Jiralib again. Okay, can place at. This will return this.properties can exist at test for the world for the position. Simple enough. Oh, get a state for neighbor update. Get a state for neighbor update. Unfortunately, I forgot to generate the documents. This is a nice class. So if not a state can place at world comma position. If you can't place it, then we say blocks.air get default state. So we are just passing the air there. Okay. Otherwise, we want to call the super.get states for neighbor with the state, with the world, with the tick view, with the position, and everything else. So what did change? All we did change is this section. We are checking if we can place at the current position in the world. If that's the case, we want the air as the block state. Otherwise, then call the super. Okay, and then he has the block properties internal class and block entity internal class and some interfaces. So that is the class itself. Hopefully the changes that I have here as generic will work. And I'm not sure about this, but this should work. Actually, I can go and ask in Fabric Discord. I will come back. Until they give us an answer, I have a to-do here. Let's fix this one. So if it's not the instance of IBE ticker factory, all we need to do is call the vanilla way of generating a ticker, and that is validate ticker for the type, comma. Here is the thing. We need the block entity type. Thankfully, we got it from our properties and then the constructor. However, here we don't have the constructor. I think we have the block entity ticker. That's not what I want. That's not what I want. Get block entity factory. Maybe that's it. Okay, validate ticker. It says create method. Now, if we take a look at block with entity, and it is asking for a block entity type, expected one, and then the ticker. Now, let's take a look at, there we go, block with entity, and let it do the search, include non-projects. There we go. Now, this is the validate ticker, okay? I can just copy it, go back here and add it at the very end. And instead of keeping it protected, I will make it private. Now, let's see the ticker. Okay, we will have a problem here as I thought, because this is the type, this is the expected type, and this needs the ticker. So get block entity ticker. And this one says that create method. Let's see what we have. So void blah 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 blah. Yeah, everything. Okay. I will cut it. I will paste it here. All it's doing actually is checking if the expected type equals to the given type, then it returns the ticker. Otherwise, null. And this is not what I want. So instead of this mumbo jumbo, I will call get block entity ticker. Okay. Here I will say the word, the state, and the type, because I need to have that method. And what they know, get ticker would get be ticker, please. I want something that I need to create. None of that. Why don't you? Oh yeah, there we go. Create method, and this will be protected and static. Actually, this should work, I think. So protected, that returns a T extends block entity, get ticker for world state type. By default here, I want to say return block entity provider dot super dot get ticker with the world state and type. And I think I messed things up. So what's that? Block entity ticker, return ticker T or ancestor. Yeah, that's exactly what we want. Okay, so that's exactly the same thing. I'm not sure why did it derped, but that's it. So by default, we are calling super, or at any time, if you have a block entity, for example, you have the example block entity, you can call the tick method on it and then call the word blah 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 on that. Okay, I paused the video and added an example of the vanilla way of doing things. Basically here, the ticker, what is the problem with you? Block entity ticker E. What is the problem? It says capture of E, make it, okay, because on top, what do we have here? It's G block, and here we are actually calling the BE ticker. The BE ticker is returning this, okay? And then it says unchecked cast from block entity ticker A. Let's call it void because I want to make sure that I'm doing things correctly. Let's get it out of here. And you are not yelling at me anyway. Okay, this is the type. I have this dot properties dot block entity properties dot type. That would work. And this is the ticker. So let's do this. And isn't this the same thing for the type? Why are you yelling at me here? Okay, let me see what's going on here. Block entity type of T. Then we have the type here that we can use. Okay, that's it. But you are still yelling about T. Cannot resolve symbol T. Okay, T extends block entity. Okay, that's the thing. It returns void. And here, actually, if I return no, that won't work. Oh god. Block entity ticker of type A. This is block entity type ticker of T. So this should work actually. This is T extends block entity. Just in case. Actually, wait a minute. Now here's the thing. It says unchecked cast. Block entity T extends block entity. Okay. The A here is I think the reason is that this guy is not being there for real. Okay. So we finished our class as much as possible, and unfortunately at this time no one did identify if this will work or not in this section for the facing, but I will wait. If people said that it has a problem and if it needed to be changed, I will inform you in another video. However, if you did see me being silent about this, it means that I got confirmation that this works. Okay, now this guy I want to suppress it for the statement, okay, because I think it's okay. It's just the derpiness between the API and how things work. Because if you notice, I'm using the same generic, I'm returning the same type of thing, and here's the same generic, here is the same type of thing. However, here E is extending block entity, so he is using a block entity ticker of type block entity. The whole problem was that this tick method does not exist on any block entity, so we don't know if that would work or not. And instead of type here, honestly, I think we need to directly use something else. For example, as I showed you, we have this dot properties dot block entity properties dot get block entity type, and you see that this is block entity type of the block entity, and that was exactly what we want for the type. Here is the block entity type of anything, so that will work. And now I can recomment it back to make sure that things are okay. And I did remove the type, so bye bye to the type here. Also for the type here, although we are sending it here, but I can say that I will use this dot properties dot block entity properties dot get type. So that's that again. Unfortunately here I can't drop the type usage because that's an override. Okay, so that's that. And here we are using the same thing for the type. Now, oh wait, capture of unknown. Okay, just do the cast. And now it says that, yeah, unchecked cast, and I will suppress it. Actually, why am I bothered? This is an abstract class, so protected abstract, and I don't need to provide anything. I will just keep this. Actually, no, let's do that. Let's sending the type and keep the type there. Come on, there we go. Now here I will replace it with this dot properties dot get properties dot get type, and that would be it. However, now I'm directly sending the type, so I'm calling this super. That's an implementation. I did want to keep the implementation because at some point it may come back and hit me in the back and say that, hey, you need to implement it. If I keep it as an abstract, every subclass would bother me with the implementation of it. Okay, but most cases, this will be our use case, so we are not bothering with this use case. Unfortunately, I can't call a static method on anything, but that's it. And honestly, I'm not sure what he's talking here about the component access, but if he ever had updated this section, I will update it myself. I will track it. Okay, that's it for this episode. In the next episode, I will come back and work on the block entity counterpart. Now, don't forget, because we have the powered and enabled and lit, I can drop this one. Okay, I can totally drop this one, and that's that. This guy is just producing iTick.create ticker word. That was what I wanted here, isn't it? So we say if it is, I did go in a wrong way. If it's iTick, please create ticker with the word. And this one, it says Qualify static create ticker word call with reference to call I tick. Oh, yeah. What did I do then? Oh, I don't need to cast it. Okay, create ticker. Yeah, it's a direct thing, because we are doing it here. Okay. So now that we have that one, bye-bye to this guy. Now, this is the whole thing, I think, about the block. Now, get ticker is result of is ignored. Yeah, we are ignoring it. So that's that. Of course, you can suppress these warnings if you want to. For example, I can suppress this warning because I'm sure that it's okay for the statement. This one, the return value of method is never used. Again, suppress for the method. And what else? Okay, commented outlines. That's okay. Then we have one here and we have one here. Other than that, we have only two to-dos that says using component accesses whatsoever. And that's it. Basically now we finished our G block. In the next video, we will work on our block entity and hopefully we can get rid of all of these. If you like these videos, please subscribe to the channel, hit the like button and turn on that bell so that when I publish a new video, you will get informed. Have fun everyone. Bye.